What's going on, Space Mob? If you guys can hear me all good, just give me a thumbs up here in the spaces. And today we're gonna get into a bunch of cool recent topics on AST. So we're gonna walk through kind of the Golden Dome contract, and we received the new Glen launch announcement and timeline. Our positioning in India, which is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And then we met with the FCC with some of our partners, which is kind of massive to show where we're headed. And then kind of some SpaceX news with their IPO, what one of their directors said about direct to device, and then some news and updates kind of out of India. So as we kind of see AST ripping to these all-time highs every day, I think it's really, really important to see and understand how all these pieces are lining up. And they're lining up a lot of the way we've expected with these catalysts hitting, and how the share price now is starting to kind of reflect what AST is building and is really starting to recognize this dual use case. We truly believe that eventually the government use case here can be just about as strong as the cellular service. And it just goes to show you with getting this new MDA Shield contract. So on January 15th, we were awarded a prime contract position in the U.S. Missile Defense Agency, the MDA Shield program. So once we did go through this, like Space Mob can kind of connect the dots that this was for Golden Dome, but Scott went ahead and tweeted and saying plus Golden Dome IDIQ, which is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract framework. So that kind of means that we're able to now, we've proved our tech and they understand that this is going to work really good for the Golden Dome. So now it's time that we will, once they are looking for specific tasks, we have the ability to go in, place our bids, and get these contracts. So what this really, really did here and showed us is that this kind of dual use case that we have been following, and we see these government contracts coming in, but now it really does cement us in, as this is one of the biggest space defense projects, probably the biggest that has ever really happened here. So now that AST has the right to kind of be involved here and be able to get in, place these bids for these contracts is going to be huge. Especially once you do go through the list here and you look at all these other companies that are listed, there's tons and tons and tons, but none of them really have. I mean, there's no company in the world, but none of them have or pose the capability that AST do here, or that AST does here. There's no one with the satellites of this size here. So once they do start opening these satellite contracts, they're going to want to use what's most efficient, that will keep our country the most secure. And just thinking and looking into this without getting too deep into the technicals of us versus other services, when you are building something of this size, the size of the satellite really, really, truly matters here. Because a lot of these like smaller companies or that produce smaller satellites that are also in this program, they will be also be able to bid on these satellites, or using the satellites for like kind of like a shield and missile tracking. But none of them, once like we have this full service up, they're not going to be able to reach the capabilities that AST can, just based off pure size. Because one AST satellite you will need a lot. I don't know the exact math, but like a smaller company, like missile tracking ones, they'll probably need 10 to 20 versus us where we need one Bluebird. So it just really goes to show you, and now that being a prime contractor for this project means that we're going to be throwing in bids for all these tasks that we can complete. And Scott and management have even noted many times that there are 8 or more use cases that the government's working on. So as these contracts come up, and now that we're in this Shield Golden Dome program, these use cases will start to add up. And I think that once we do kind of get this more service going here, that we will see these contracts come in order to just be another day of PR. AST secures. I'm not sure if we ever will get these crazy, like this PR telling us exactly what we're doing, because at the same time, or even for like the money amount, it will show in our government revenue. But at the time when we are in this program and we are getting these contracts, we might not even know what they're for, when they are, the size of them, just based off security reasons alone. If you're building something that needs to be so secure that will protect America from missiles coming from anywhere in the world and really provide this layer, you don't want other countries knowing the exact technology that you're using. Because once they understand the technology you're using, there's easier ways to find loopholes. So I think a lot of this kind of will stay under the bus, but we do think that this will increase the government revenue for AST drastically here. And that just really kind of sparked up this new bump, like over 100. And it's funny how all this really timed up, and it's just something you kind of have to be happy about as a shareholder, is that like we've seen the stock going over 100, but it was so hard to get that final finish over 100. Every day we'd see 100, you check back, it's 95. Me and my friend were trying to plan for what seemed a month to go out and get a dinner and a drink or two to celebrate it finishing over 100. And every time it would hit 100, it would fall short. So we had that Thursday, finished over 100, super, super, super happy. Went out, did my little celebration. Then I come back home, check my phone. I see AST's up 7% more. I'm just like, okay. When you see an after hours move like that, you just kind of automatically have to assume some PR came out. Go to AST's page, go to their LinkedIn. Don't see any PR. So what do you do from there? Open up X. Every tweet on my timeline is, oh my gosh, MDA contract, AST is included in the list. This is something that SpaceMob has been looking for, scrolling through names of hundreds of companies every time that these do get announced. But shout out SpaceMob for finding AST. And a lot of companies have been included in this, but they haven't really done like official PR. Like I know Rocket Lab is also like kind of included this, but we haven't really seen them talk about this. But so we're like, okay, we might not get PR. At least like us here at SpaceMob understand that we have just gotten like part of the ability to be in Golden Dome. We all understand that. We all understand the giant scope and how AST satellites will really be a prime candidate for this program. So we're like, okay, let's see what happens. Next morning, bam, official PR, just how we wished. It's great when the company is giving out, posting on, getting this PR out on Business Wire, making it official. So this way, the institutions know, it's getting posted on Bloomberg Terminal. All the investors know, okay, this is official. AST is dual use. They're hyped about this. They're posting official PR. It's inked in, something to celebrate. And it's something, if you just follow this company and their earnings combined with all of the brilliant minds of SpaceMob on X, none of this should be really a surprise at all. And when you look at the scope of the Golden Dome project and just what AST is building, and the fact that management has said the technology the government is using for AST for now and our satellites for now will be needed for the Golden Dome. And they have even said we think we're well positioned. So if you really follow the management here and you follow the breadcrumbs that they've been leaving for us, we knew this was going to happen. So the next step now is, as this project goes and as our satellites do get up into the sky, is to get these requests in for these contracts. And I'm excited. Hopefully, we do get some details on these. I think once we do secure some of these contracts, it'll just be kind of a generic PR, like AST signs blank amount. Like when we did like the original SDA one, that was like $43 million, and that also sent the stock skyrocketing because people. That's when you really start to realize how dual use, and it's going to be more than dual use too, but how just dual face this company is when you do see the numbers come in. Because even bears after this move, it's like, oh, they didn't even get a Golden Dome contract. We didn't know if they even got paid. We didn't even know if they're part of it, but they have the ability to. Just typical bears hopping on to something there. So with that, I think that really helped us kind of establish this price that's over 100, even though we even fell below it after. But I think it just helps establish, because when the stock does run up like this, goes from $50 to 100 super, super fast and bounces around, mostly because the market volatility. But once you do see something like this kind of concreted in that we have speculated about, it makes the institutions and sellers say they just got the ability to bid on this, like the biggest defense project ever. Why sell now? So I think that had a big contribution in keeping this over 100, and I think it will hopefully continue to settle over this, despite if the market does draw down, we might see dips there. But it is nice to see it kind of consolidate, and it's all just healthy. These catalysts that we did see coming start to hit, and the next key to getting full service for mobile network operators, for getting these satellites up for Golden Dome. What we have said in my show many times is that the key right now to full connectivity is a couple things, and it really comes down to production. Is the team going to be making those 6 satellites a month, which we think that they're already kind of currently doing? When one of our board members kind of slipped it and said that we're making 6 a day, but we think she meant 6 a month. So once we have that 6 a month, great start. Now, while these satellites sit there, we need some way to get these into space to accelerate this process here. So step in Blue Origin, New Glenn, which I believe is the complete key right now to full connectivity. Because once New Glenn is up and we are shipping batches, they'll be able to launch 8, and some people even think 12 Bluebirds at the same time. And once you start doing the math there, we just shipped one off to them. So once that one's up, we'll have 7 Bluebirds up in space. So 2 more Blue Origin launches, you're already at over 20 satellites. And a lot of speculation, and we think that like they can start beta service at like 25 satellites. So if we just keep getting these New Glenn launches to line up here, even every other month or every 3 months, the fact that they're sending so much up at once is really going to increase the payload in space. And ultimately, this is what's going to drive the profit to AST here. Government contracts that are from these satellites being up, and then mobile network operator users wanting full connectivity everywhere in this world, paying for this service. And New Glenn's going to help us accomplish this. And it also is kind of refreshing using New Glenn because at the end of the day, SpaceX owns Starlink. They're our probably biggest direct to cell competitor. We're often named their little brother. We see articles come out that it's like Bezos, or not Bezos, Elon. It's being challenged by a Bell, like that Forbes article we saw a bunch. And when you see those articles come out, and it's like, okay, so we have to rely on kind of our biggest competitor to get us launched. They're still going to, because they need the income. But it is nice to be partnered with Blue Origin, who is kind of new to launching these massive payloads to space. And we're new to getting these satellites in space. So I think it's a win-win for both companies here. We're bringing orders into their book. They're putting our satellites up in space. We're bringing them that early revenue that they need, and we're letting them launch our satellites to prove that New Glenn and Blue Origin is a reliable launch partner, and it's the first real test here, especially that these are the biggest satellites ever in low Earth orbit. That it's a challenge. It's not easy to get these up. You want to use trusted partners. ISRO was able to get ours up super nicely. I wouldn't even mind using them again just for one-offs here when they are open up. And I think just as we go and having these multiple launch partners, SpaceX, Blue Origin, ISRO, maybe Rocket Lab eventually, and who knows whichever ones are gonna pop up eventually, launch companies. And it really, as competition grows in the launch sector, it'll drive prices down, make launches easier to access, and all in all, just make a good ecosystem. And to get these satellites in space, AST needs a good ecosystem to get these up, or there's no final service, or there's no full service. And with full service comes great responsibility and a lot of hard work, because what AST is building here, as we see, takes a while. These satellites take a lot to build, and getting them in space is kind of the ultimate kind of part where we slow down. So it's crucial to get these up. Blue Origin, New Glenn will lead us that way. Once these start going and once they start doing these batch launches is really where we're going to sit back and say, wow, full connectivity is on its way when you see 8 going up at once. So with these bluebirds going up, one more really, really crucial thing here will be FCC approval. And it looks like the team right now is getting ahead of this. We did see Brendan Carr come to Midland, Texas, do a tour of the factory, super bullish. He's aware of this technology. We've seen him talk direct to cell. He's kind of the main guy in charge of all these approvals, letting us know which services will be allowed, what frequencies, making sure everything gets approved and goes smoothly, because this technology is brand new. That the FCC, this is as new to the FCC as it is to anybody else. So they have to navigate this carefully, and to see that there seems to be like friends with the AST team is just super bullish. And we had a new release yesterday, and it showed that AST, AT&T, Verizon, and FirstNet met with the FCC on January 1st for a joint ex parte about how grant approval will expand communications and will not result in harmful interference. Approval feels imminent after reading that. And the fact that we have a bunch of that they send like representatives from all these teams to go to this, and when you have Verizon and AT&T in a room working for a common cause, that's a good sign. When two of the biggest MNOs are coming together so they can get the technological push ahead over T-Mobile and other mobile network operators, it's just an amazing sign. Because seeing their commercials, it does not seem like Verizon and AT&T like each other. And it's really cool that they can civilly kind of sit in a room with FCC, explain and kind of walk through to the FCC how this is going to work, how this won't cause interference, and ultimately just more steps on trying to get this to full connectivity. Without FCC approval, there really is no AST service. And AST also sent out a letter yesterday to the FCC kind of tidying up some outstanding items. I got this tweet by Anpanman. It's just kind of responding to requests and filling in the FCC on some technological frequencies and AT&T and Verizon and how they're going to integrate with AST here. And it just seems like what we're doing right now is just trying to get all these loose ends super tied up. So once this does go out to the FCC, that they already saw our whole factory. They understand exactly what we're building. They understand how it works. And now you have all these other MNO is meeting with the FCC and telling them how it's going to work, what frequencies they're going to use. And it's just this relationship right here is more important than any. So, Brendan Carr, if you're listening, that approval will be very, very appreciated. And I ultimately think that is where one of the next biggest catalysts said. And they need to be able to legally operate the satellite constellation, and they need to be able to secure the licenses for the radio frequencies used to avoid any interference, because we don't want to mess with any already radio networks or cellular networks. We really strive for being on the FCC's good side. And it's funny, like looking at like filings and stuff, and it seems like we're always responding to the FCC, giving them information, all this great stuff. Meanwhile, like SpaceX Starlink is going to the FCC to complain about us. And it's not that they're complaining about us because they don't think the tech will work. They're complaining about us because they're terrified of competition. And if I was Starlink and I saw FCC chairman walking through Midland, Texas, knowing that they're partnered with Verizon and AT&T in America, I'd be terrified. That's most likely why they do send these letters trying to like scare the FCC away from AST, which is kind of counterproductive for them because they want the revenue that AST is going to bring them for launches. And trying to doing this like partner where you work with us to launch us while also take stabs at us to the FCC just doesn't look good. It's Elon's business. He likes to be at the top and more of a cutthroat approach. And I assume that's with the Starlink and SpaceX management, that they want to be aggressive to kind of be the best service they can. And Starlink kind of already is a household name here. So AST, like you tell someone on the street, AST SpaceMobile, they're not going to most likely have a clue what you're talking about unless they follow me on Twitter here. But you tell someone about Starlink, they already kind of know it's Elon. They kind of know what's going on there. So while they might have a little more recognition to like the average person right now, and that's mostly because of Elon and kind of just things he built kind of take off at this point because he has so many people like devoted behind him or haters. But what AST is building, what like a lot of the people don't understand is they hear direct to cell. They don't understand the difference in what's being built here. They don't understand that AST you'll be able to pull up any phone like that exists as long as you are connected with an MNO that we support. You will be able to enable the service, buy your day pass, and use it. Versus SpaceX, Starlink, they're asking companies to dumb down their apps to 3G so they can be used. And I'm yet to see any like video data tests coming from Starlink. So it seems like they realize that they're kind of behind, and now they're trying to play catch up by taking stabs at us. Only time will tell, though. This is still a very, very early technology here. So, like, no one really expects this to take off overnight. And what AST has been doing the past year, and especially these last few weeks, is really building this foundation. So, with kind of what's going on with Starlink and SpaceX, they are trying to get approved for direct-to-device in India, and they got rejected on their recent application, citing technical and frequency band issues. So I saw that headline pop up on my feed, and I really started to think about this. I first started thinking about like, okay, the market in India is going to be massive, and this is why Starlink and them are trying to make the early push there, because the cell tower, the infrastructure in India is not amazing. When you go to these towns that are outside of the big cities, where a lot of people don't even have phones, they're not building these cell towers that cost hundreds and hundreds and millions of dollars because there's zero return on investment there. If you go to out in India, take a train out somewhere out there, you're not going to see a cell tower because at the end of the day, these mobile network operators are in the game to make money. Sadly enough, in today's day and age, there aren't companies out willing, especially mobile network operators, willing to build $1 million in towers for what, a couple people to sign up. There's no money there. So this service in India, I think, can become people's entire like phone plans. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you somehow are lucky enough or save to get a phone, you don't really have a cell tower near you. You're gonna have to go to one of these satellite operators where you will be able to get high quality service and be able to do things online, be able to talk to people, make phone calls, start your online business. And it's really gonna, I think, boost the India economy is just letting everyone be connected, because ultimately the people that are out there in the slums and don't have access to cell phone towers are at a major disadvantage. And it's no one's fault, because the cell towers just aren't there, and they building them will not really be profitable for these big companies, so there's no reason to. And so looking into how crucial this is in India, I thought that there's got to be like something here. If this is going to be crucial and they're already denying SpaceX kind of early version of direct to device, could AST be at risk? And then as I look into it, I obviously, we had that big MNO signing with Vodafone Idea, which is India's Vodafone division, which has, I'm going to see how many users. And I know it has, yeah, it has like 192 to 197 million users. So we'll say about almost 200 million users. And if you think of how many, there's billions of people in India. So if we get started with this one service and we can trickle down and show how amazing it is working with Vodafone Idea, which Vodafone wants to get this thing live more than anyone else. So once we do start getting these up, they're going to want to take this live in India, because they know the coverage gap there, and they know that once people see this and once it's picked up, that AST can really take over here. And then diving deeper into Vodafone Idea, you see that the Indian government owns 49% of Vodafone Idea. So who's going to benefit here when SpaceX is blocked and users have to go to Vodafone Idea to get this satellite service anywhere they are? They go to Vodafone Idea. Vodafone Idea is owned almost half by the Indian government. So it makes you think, why would the Indian government allow SpaceX to operate when they own 50% almost of the company that's working with AST? And I'm not saying, I'm not making some like crazy conspiracy up. I'm just pointing at the facts here. And it just, as I saw this article, I just started to think, because we're so focused on right now on getting these launches of beta service to the US military applications, that sometimes the lens to what's going on in the rest of the world and how the need for connectivity everywhere else in the world is. But as you think about it, you think, wow, is AST building a monopoly in India, like completely silently, that we don't really know about? And my question is, if you connect kind of some of these things that are going on here, and the way that we just use ISRO to launch our Bluebird 6, and the Indian Prime Minister going on X and congratulating us and then bragging, saying this is the biggest LEO satellite ever. And you could really, and during our launch stream, we had someone from India in there, and he was saying that this is just like a major step for their country and the space race that they're trying to be a part of. And having that milestone of, we launched the first biggest 2,400-foot array, looks good on the resume. So we honestly think, I wouldn't say they're fully building a monopoly, because there's so many MNOs. Surely some will partner with Starlink, but we really do think right now that AST is slowly trying to build this monopoly out in India, partnered with Vodafone Idea, which is owned by the Indian government. So really, if they want to block SpaceX, whatever their intention here, if it actually is interference or whatever reasons, so be it. But would it be beneficial for their government to block out the direct competitor of a company they own 50% in? Probably. I'm not saying it's all about money, but something to think about here. So with SpaceX too, we just saw yesterday that things are heating up for what we think, and what a lot of experts are posting now is that SpaceX is going to IPO in June around Elon's birthday. I don't know Elon's birthday. That would be funny if it's on his birthday. If it's on his birthday, buy calls for that day, June 28th. So okay, so maybe the late June, by like start of July calls. I'm kidding, not financial advice. Do not buy calls. Do not listen to me. But they're still saying this thing's going to be at a $1.5 trillion value. And when you wrap your mind around that, and how much money that is for a company that is about to just go public on a dot like that, is insane. And then you look at ASTS, they're worth $43 billion. Rocket Lab probably worth around the same. So you have these two companies that are going to be essentially doing what SpaceX is doing for a fraction of the price. For under $100 billion, you can get Rocket Lab and AST combined, basically. If each are around 40 billion combined, 80 billion. I'd much rather buy a share of each of those than a share of SpaceX. Because once and yeah, you have to think about it too, is once SpaceX does IPO and is live, we are going to see an influx of space ETFs that want to buy SpaceX. We're going to see retail investors who have invested in Tesla early want to also be in this, because we're starting to see this new theme of space for the year. And a lot of people don't know the play to make here. But they say they see Elon Musk's SpaceX is going live. A lot of retail is not really going to care or even think about valuation. While some of these people that are super into valuations and stocks are going to say this is insanely overvalued. Like, what are we doing still buying this? There comes a point where valuation doesn't really matter. And I think that's something that we've really seen in the stock market the last couple of years, especially with like Palantir, Nvidia. They're both great companies, but like Nvidia to be worth 5 trillion and one of the most, or like the most valuable company in the world, kind of out of nowhere, it just shows you that valuations are kind of starting to fade. And there's so many of like the Mag 7 now worth a couple trillion or over a trillion. And I remember when like Apple was the first to hit a trillion, and this was only, I don't know, 5 years ago, if that. And it was like a big deal. But now you're seeing companies regularly hit this $1 trillion valuation or close to it. And it's really not surprising. So once this does IPO 1.5 trillion, it's kind of gonna put like a benchmark of valuation for the sector. Obviously, SpaceX is the most notable space company. It's owned by Elon, who's the most wealthy man in the world and one of the most famous. Everyone knows him. So once this goes live, 1.5 trillion, it'll set like a benchmark. Okay, so the most pristine, top of the line space company is worth 1. Okay, so you start looking, trickling down other space companies. Then you see AST's 40 billion, Rocket Lab's 40 billion. Then you go to some of these smaller ones, they're 10, 5 billion. Then you look at all of those and like the revenue and sales they're doing compared to SpaceX. And then you'll see, while SpaceX is making a lot of money, but eventually there will come a time where these other players catch up in the revenue side. And then once they are kind of more caught up to the revenue, and you see SpaceX worth $2 trillion after it's been live for 6 months, people will want the smaller stock, because they'll say, oh, if SpaceX can be at 1.5 trillion, why can't this stock even be at just 100 billion? So it's going to force the public market really here to benchmark the value of this space sector and the direct-to-device technology specifically. And then we even had a former director at SpaceX admit in an interview that AST was the real first proponents of this direct-to-device service, and a lot of what they did was kind of modeled after us. And if that doesn't get your brain kind of going, I don't know what will. Because if you have a company that's about to be worth $1.5 trillion, capturing and trying to replicate a technology of company, but by the way, when SpaceX probably started getting into direct SL, we have to think of how low AST was worth. AST was probably worth 1-2 billion, if that, because it went stagnant for years and it went down. It hit $2. It was in the millions in market cap. So SpaceX probably thought that they could kind of take over the direct-to-device game and kind of use AST as like the benchmark of what works and what doesn't, because ultimately they probably thought we were going to fail. And there was some speculation too that some people at SpaceX, and when the stock was cratering, people, they were like shorting it and trying to get it low as well, because ultimately if they phased out AST when it was $1 or $2, if we got delisted, if it went bankrupt, there's no really other company that would be ahead right now. It would be SpaceX only. Because like a lot of people are already calling AST a monopoly. Like we're trying to build direct-to-device monopoly. But SpaceX seems like, with the executive there saying that they kind of let us prove the proof of concept of this. It's like, okay, they try to take, kind of not really take our tech because they're different approaches, but kind of the verification that this is possible from AST. And I think that he kind of recognizes that AST had the lead, the way he words it, and that AST did the heavy lifting of the proof of concept here. And hearing it be admitted by executive at SpaceX that kind of AST has the lead or had the lead, which we obviously think they still do, is very, very inspiring, especially when that company is about to go public at 1.5 trillion. We're going to talk a little bit about stock price now. If you guys have questions, please drop them in the comments. I always like to answer your guys' questions. Or you can even ask to join as a talker and we can call you up here. But yeah, or you can leave it on there. I see some coming in on the space threads. But with all this news that's coming out, kind of all I just explained, it is really setting up AST right now to have a explosive year. And it's very, very encouraging that the first year is not, or like that the year just started. And it's very impressive that AST has been able to run like this. And I think it just ultimately comes down to space being the we are up a little pre-market right now too. So I just think space is the big theme of the year, and kind of SpaceX going ahead and going public and IPOing was just really, really the confirmation that we needed here, that this technology is going to grow. Everything Elon has done, Tesla, has exploded from what a company people thought would die to one of the biggest in the world, making him the most wealthiest person. And so to see him getting involved, or he's been involved, but going all in now on direct to sell is just wild. And it's funny, as we're here, I just got like an email from Benzinga. It's a good market publication, but they posted SpaceX IPO might be tagged like this on an email. SpaceX IPO, what to know. So it said it should be happening in June. And it's supposed to be synced up with a unique space occurrence, which is the planets Jupiter and Venus will appear to align in the sky together on June 8th and June 9th as reported. Okay, so June 8th or June 9th, maybe they want to align it with this cool space phenomenon, which is fun. And then they also say it could be his birthday. So this is where it gets interesting. They say how to invest in SpaceX IPO before offering. Okay, so yeah, it just tells you can get like Alphabet on some, EchoStar. Okay, I thought I was gonna say I was hoping it was gonna name out some competitors and say you won't be able to buy SpaceX the second it goes public. Well, you can buy this now. Maybe that's an article, right? I do want to start kind of like a more of a publication website or such where we can post things like that, because I do think those kind of articles are important, especially when you have so many people and satellite gurus, Tiny Tim throwing out all this nonsense. So it's good to have somewhere where you can go that will kind of speak the truth on what AST is building here and kind of how it compares to Starlink. Because when you just hear Starlink versus AST, like the CEO of on Boost Mobile, one of those super cheap MNOs, they're tweeting this past week about how AST is going to get ran to the ground by SpaceX and Starlink because Starlink is already a massively recognized brand and AST is not known, and they are taking a white paper approach because they're going through MNOs. So I responded to that. I don't even remember what I said, but I just remember saying the white paper approach is kind of the exact way that we want to do this. Without these partnerships with the MNOs, what would AST be? So once Starlink does try to make their own service or whatever, and T-Mobile drops them, we'll see in the amount of users, like if T-Mobile switches over because of this, that it'll prove that kind of like this white paper approach is better. And I do think that like Verizon and AT&T will use like the SpaceMobile branding and logo to promote it, because SpaceMobile is a super, super cool name. Sign up for SpaceMobile and like you know exactly what it is right away. You know, oh, SpaceMobile, okay, I'll be connected from space. I will be able to text, I will be able to call, I'll be able to do everything I need to do from my phone using outer space. But I just think the whole way that it is funny that like Boost Mobile CEO is just trying to get anything to rip on us, where I don't think he really understands the difference between us and Starlink with the text, with them being able to do texting and us being able to do data. So yesterday, huge day. And so some of these stock moves are so funny to watch. Like we have analysts upgrading, downgrading, stock falling 13%. The next day it's up 15%. And nothing really changes besides some bank analyst saying, "Oh, I think it's worth 137." While Scotiabank says, "Oh, I think it's worth 45." And Scotiabank, they just really their reputation was strong for the space sector. They were in AST before a bunch of these big banks were giving the most bullish price targets. And now what? Now they're saying to sell it, dropping its targets. It just lost credibility a lot when they could have been like one of the early AST banks and kind of went with that. But instead, now they're trying to turn back on it, whether they're being influenced by shorts or they don't own enough, which honestly, that doesn't surprise me if they don't own enough, because they've been doing coverage on this stock for like, I don't know when the exact first coverage started, but I assume Scotiabank kind of already always has been there in these targets. So my opinions are like, they've probably been covering us since, I don't know, $5, $10, $15, if not lower a price. So my theory is they just simply don't own enough. They caught on to ASTS. They got in super early. Probably didn't buy that much. Saw gains of 1,000% and are like, this could have been the one right here. this was the one to go deep in. We provided the DD, we provided the information. This was our shot to go all in. We didn't, or they sold early. They missed it. They want to own more because they do the coverage and they understand it. But it's too late now. Once it's over 100 and you're setting price targets for 46, if it goes to 46, I'm calling up the bank and getting a loan. But never take financial advice from me because I also don't really know what I'm talking about. So yesterday, all-time high, 124. Amazing to see. And I've been playing options on this like a typical trader gambler. And it's mostly just on these dips. And then when it does magically rip to 120, get out, make a few thousand, clean as day. And then ultimately, I just like doing that so I can buy more shares because I don't think I've ever met anyone in AST who owns enough shares. There's some of these people, and there's some people I've talked to that have a lot of shares. But most people, I don't think anyone's satisfied with the amount of shares they have. They're just like, I just want more, 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 more. Especially for us that were in this at 4, we're like, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But so like this move that's happening right now, I know like some people. There's a one of the I don't know, valuations or whatever. There's so many people that are short and pop up on my feed. It's hard to keep track of. But one of the main kind of points that I saw on this shorts big article, and the stock's up what like 40% since. But their main point was like this is just another meme stock mania right here. People are saying, oh, like space is the next GameStop, AST is the next GameStop. This is like the next big thing to kind of meme up and get into. And the move that we're seeing and we really have seen over the last year is not. I don't think it is any. I don't think it's just retail hype or meme stock. It's just the market and these institutions like finally pricing in kind of what AST is capable of here. Pricing in this new MDA contract, pricing in FCC approval coming on. And a lot of the stuff is that like it's not priced in until it happens. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's priced in." Like everyone knows AST is going to get approval. Everyone knows AST is going to do like a launch with Blue Origin in February. But the thing is like are these things priced in? And that's like a big question you can always ask yourself when you watch a stock all day. What's priced in, what's not? But we have seen the stock over the year do this massive re-rating, and it's very, very justified because what we're building out here, people are starting to see, wow, okay, this is picking up for the government. Okay, T-Mobile, Verizon, Vodafone, tons and not T-Mobile, sorry, AT&T, Verizon, Vodafone, Rakuten, Bell Canada, tons and tons of users, billion-dollar companies backing this, investing, giving up pretty much their customer pool to us. It's going to be a split revenue model, but still, like you don't give up your customer. You don't give a split customer model of revenue to just a company that you don't trust or want to build something out with long term. So the narrative is really shifting here to global infrastructure, to a global infrastructure giant. That's what I wrote down here. And I truly believe that's what AST is becoming, a global infrastructure giant. Because the global infrastructure that they're building can be used for defense, can be used for PNT, can be used for IoT, can be used for tracking, can be used for obviously communication, texting, calling. So what they're building here is an infrastructure that's going to be over the entire globe. And if you can't sit back and see how valuable that is, then I don't know what to tell you because they're telling us where this is going. We're seeing us work with the US government. We're working with like defense or not defense, but government agencies in Singapore. With Vodafone, we're going to be working with some of these European countries for like FirstNet type deals. So like the infrastructure that we're building globally is just going to be very, very needed and desired. And once there is full connectivity, it's hard to step back from that. It's hard to say, oh, we don't really need that when it does exist. It's hard for these knows to even stay away, because at the end of the day, if they don't catch up to the emerging tech that is happening in the communication sector right now, which is direct to cell, they're going to fall behind. Someone that wants to buy a phone plan, Boost Mobile doesn't offer direct to cell here. Why would I go with them? I want to be able to go camping and be able to call my family and have that sense. Like, even if don't need it, it's just good to have that sense of security. Even in my own house sometimes. If I'm in the basement or like up in a specific room in a corner, I remember trying to order like a pizza once and it was cutting out. And I'm like, it's good to just have that supplemental. So when your phone can't handle inside in a basement, who knows, no service, that it can supplement it over and you're not going to ultimately drop off this call. So seeing these big pops, and it's always funny, like it'll be down like 3% in the morning, then all of a sudden you look back, it's up 5%, then it's like then it's red, and then all of a sudden it's 6%. You're just like, what is going on? And that's why, like, during the day I don't like to check my portfolio, because like I don't need to see those swings. I know like my portfolio isn't that big compared to some of these people who have thousands and thousands and thousands of shares, but still, you don't need to be staring, watching your money go up and down like that. You just need to buy the stock, buy the company that you really believe and trust in, and just wait it out right here. And we're seeing, like, as this news does come up, institutional hands are now grabbing the wheel and getting involved, and ultimately that just helps it stabilize us as a company. When you have Deutsche Bank giving $137 price targets while we're at 100, so you could see these banks, they want to kind of keep this stock like, not propped up, but they want to keep this stock strong because they know that this company is building something amazing. And I think the volume and price action is showing right now that the floor might has finally moved, because on these moves, like even like one of the moves to 100, it went back down to like 48 after, and then it went back to like 100, then it was like 65. But with Golden Dome, with New Glenn coming, with kind of SpaceX IPO coming, you really start to think, has the floor finally moved here? Is 100 now the floor? Is it in the rearview mirror? Can we break below it? Who knows? But with all that said, I really do think this is kind of the best, as I talk right now. Said it before, but we are positioned better than ever. And to see the stock price reflect that, very positive. We currently at about 123 pre-market this morning. We opened in about 30 minutes. I feel like I could talk all day about it. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I want to start pumping these out more, possibly every Thursday, just to kind of keep a schedule going. We plan to do more videos too, have more special guests on, so on and so forth. And make sure you guys do follow our pages everywhere. It's the Space Mobile Show, or just at Space Mobile Show. And we're just going to keep building this out. And first, let's see if we have any questions here. So we have Mari, who's asked, do you think eventually we get access via our other devices like laptops and smart TVs, etc.? Whatever eventually replace need for Starlink, which is what I'm using for home internet. That's a really good question. And honestly, I think right now the true main focus of AST is this direct-to-cell technology. I don't really think they plan on doing a special device, and the way that we are partnered with these MNOs and kind of using their spectrum bands to get this service there is, I think that's the route we're gonna go with. And ultimately, kind of like backstepping now and relying on like a dish for home internet and such like that will just kind of take time away from what we're building. But I do see a time, and once the constellation is full, that AST could offer some of their own services that would like include this. I'm not really sure on the technicals of how this would work. We had someone Investor Gadget let them know that a few premium laptops are available with 5G capable chips that would become a popular option. Okay, so I guess as these laptops and such like also catch up with the tech and implement new chips, that it's something that could happen to AST eventually down the line. I think right now they really want to focus on this direct to sell because it's kind of the backbone of this and of AST. And if what we're building now can also be used for government use cases, is just massive. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have one more comment 6 seconds ago. Short term, how concerned should one be about pace of satellite launch, which is much slower than what management has been communicating? Good question. Launch is kind of one of the toughest parts about being in any space dock because there's delays when you're building out something that's new that the world has never seen, that the technology sector has never seen. It might get delayed by months. And I think it's just really, really important to just sit back and remember that a few month delay now does not mean anything in 5 years. Yeah, okay, they put off a launch, the stock might fall 10, 15%. But we've also seen the stock fall 10 and 15% on a random Tuesday with no news. So I think it just plays into the volatility here. And I think people like to trade that and be involved in that. When it falls $20 and they buy in, big stake, sell it on the next pop, like bam, profit. I think a lot of trading, I wouldn't say a lot, but seems like some traders and such are kind of catching on to AST as kind of a play like that, following the trends. So yeah, it might not always be a very stable, as in like it could crater, but we do think that uh, it will always kind of even out, and as these cases come and these satellites get up, it will only be positive. Yeah, it might dip, but ultimately we think that most dips here on out will rip back faster. So we have one more question. Thought is matter. Short term, how concerned should one be about price of satellite? No, I just read that one. So just a guy, are you still picking up more shares and averaging up? Do you have a share price where you'll stop buying or recommend people stop buying or is there anything wrong? Or just letting them right along? So personally, I never really stopped buying AST. Obviously, when it's like over 120, when I do get paid, I'm not like going all in. I do have like a little basket of cash now, just waiting and hoping. I obviously that's the thing is like you see it rip to 120 or higher, then you're like, oh, I hope it drops to $60 so I can buy back cheaper. Like there's some people I work with that try to time all these out. Oh, I'm gonna sell at 120 when AST's back at 60 in a month. I'm gonna go all in. But I think this investment should never really be looked at as that way, because as we see, like people that were trading these stocks like Nvidia and such 5, 6 years ago are now kicking themselves because they're like, oh, I had 10,000 shares this one day for like some trades and stuff. If I just held that now, I'd have tens of millions of dollars. So I think the thing with AST is that it's never a bad time to buy. And there's no really like price point in my head where I will stop buying, and there's no really price point where I will sell. I think it's something that's kind of like an ongoing asset that we've come to appreciate, and I think it's something that if you are in it, it's something that you should own and stay informed in ultimately your entire investment journey. Because like what we're building, some of us might say, yeah, we have a 5 year, 10-year horizon. We're gonna have full coverage. We're gonna be printing revenue. But the thing is, like, AST will still exist. AST will still be doing more, doing a variety of services. They'll be doing use cases that we don't even know right now in 10, 15 years. They might be manufacturing certain things, but like, there's no really way to tell where this will be in 10 years. But I will tell you that this is something that you probably will want to own. And if you're buying right now at $40 billion in market cap, I don't think this is something that you'll look back on and really come to regret. And the only time you really will come to regret this, and talking with people that I have seen that are in the stock that do have regrets, are the people that have tried to time this over time. They're like, oh, I had 10,000 shares at $15. I sold at 25. And it's just something that, frankly, I don't try to time, and I don't think anyone else should. You buy the companies you love and you stick by them, and you just ride the journey. So I think with all that said, kind of the Golden Dome, New Glenn, kind of the developments with the FCC and these meetings and SpaceX IPO and their old director saying that AST was kind of the first at the race is really shaping up AST to propel further. The fact that it even closed over 120 yesterday has got me and everyone should be feeling good. It's it's like it could be a weird line in your mind where you're like where you feel greedy, but you also feel that ASD has so much more um, room to run and so much more to come, because ultimately we're at $120 and we haven't even had full coverage, and these government contracts and like this Golden Dome MDA Shield, it's like we haven't even secured these full contracts yet. And the way that Scott and team talk about how much that government revenue is going to pick up while these MNOs are taking strong bias. Like we had AT&T on their earnings, like on the headline for the earnings image, use a picture of one of our satellites. So it just really shows that these partnerships are proud of what they're using. And if you see these like commercials when you watch football, these MNOs are very, very cutthroat with each other. They drop each other's names and slam and show data. So once this does become reality and the direct to sell competition is heating up, we're probably going to see similar. We're going to see, hopefully, if anyone from Verizon or AT&T is listening, marketing campaigns where you're comparing our satellite technology to Starlink's. And if Starlink still is kind of where it is now, and you're showing AST with high service data, watching a Netflix video out in the woods, while someone in the corner is like trying to send a text home to their family, and multiple texts are failing, they don't know if they're going through. While the AST dude's on like a video call with his wife and kids, hey, we're out here camping, while like his buddy's like, can I use your phone? All right, I might propose this to AT&T. That's a great commercial. Two guys out of the couple buddies out in the woods, have to call home. You call home, checking on the kids, everyone's happy. Then got the one buddy with Starlink over there trying to like send a text and it just keeps failing. That he ultimately says, hey, can I borrow your phone? And say, hey, you got to switch to AT. So I guess that's my marketing pitch of the day here. And when it comes to AST, I have so many marketing ideas because that's kind of where I come from. But I believe that a lot of the marketing will be left to AT&T and Verizon. And I think AT&T is really the way they've been kind of like engaging all of us with the A. I think they're really going to try to make SpaceMobile a household name. Because as you see, like T-Mobile is using T-Mobile, like Starlink with T-Mobile with Starlink for their satellite service. So once they roll these out and say, hey, with SpaceMobile, I think that's also going to draw just so much attraction, because you see these commercials, say, what is SpaceMobile? You'll see like the cool like orange logo, or even like, who knows, they might use like a red A or something. You say, what is that? So then people start looking into SpaceMobile and they see it's public. They say, okay, say it's a year from now. They say, oh, I can buy SpaceX, their competitor, for, I don't know, a year from now. SpaceX goes public at 1.5 trillion in June. A year from now, SpaceX can be worth $2 trillion or more, and that wouldn't surprise me at all, because you have to think about the brand recognition, and with that stock and things that Elon is behind, people want their money there. The big institutions want their money there. But there will also be the big money and institutions that are smart enough that can see that the space sector is taking off and do other plays adjacent to this. And ultimately, now until June is going, if that's when it does go public, is going to be an insanely fun ride. I think that's going to wrap it up. We've been on here about an hour. I appreciate you guys all stepping in. It's always nice to kind of come in here and just talk about recent news because there's so many exciting things happening here. The market opens in 13 minutes and it's I feel like I wake up excited every day about this company. When there were times like when this was $4, I feel like thing was $4 for like 2 years. And I just remember like still tuning in, but also just being like, I just don't really care. This was my stock that I had to retire with. And now you're showing me that my 4,000 share position is worth $8,000. We'll wait. And now here we are, years later, much more comfortable. And people buying now feel a lot better than when we were buying in those trenches. And especially, I remember like one of my first buys is when it was NPA and it shot up to $20, like during the SPAC craze. And then it took what? Till like 2024 to even get to $20 again. So people that wait, and I think looking back on these charts, looking back on these random dips when Scotiabank downgrades, I think it's if you just follow the trend over time and follow the news and what AST is building, they kind of like coincide to kind of gradually go. And it's a comfortable spot to be in because as amazing it would be, it's like if AST SpaceMobile magically shoots to like 300 in like a couple weeks, it's like, okay, it could be back at 100 just like that. So it's nice to see this gradual news come out, these gradual steps the company take, while the stock price gradually catches up, prices this stuff in, and really realizes the true potential of what this company is building. I keep saying I'm going to wrap it up, and then I go on more. But wish you guys all good Thursday. We got 2 more days to finish this trading week. 122 right now. Shout out Anpan Man. I see him in here. Yesterday he said he had a dream that it hit 124. And then like magically I refresh and it's 124. Massive. So shout out all the listeners here and make sure you subscribe and follow us on here at the SpaceMobile Show. And let's have another day. Let's finish this week strong, baby. Take it easy, guys. Space Mob, have a good one.